Hi, this is Stacy Butler, and today I'm going to be presenting the topic of my research paper, graphene. Um, Graphene is a fairly new wonder material. It's highly conductive, very thin, made of pure carbon. It's only about one to just a few atoms thick, and it's also extremely strong, supposedly about 200 times stronger than steel. Even though it's been theorized about for a few decades now, it's only was only discovered back in 2003 when researchers finally created it in a lab, and it hasn't really been developed or worked on much up until the past few years when massive developments have been made. And on top of all of these boons, it's also fairly cheap to manufacture, which is always good. So graphene is produced by two fairly common methods. There are a bunch of different ways of doing it, but the most common methods are simply by just taking adhesive tape to graphite or another pure carbon substance, and by using a lot of patience, continually splitting the carbon material into single layers and then applying it to a substrate, or by epitaxial growth, which is depositing crystalline structures onto another substrate. But as I mentioned, either method requires depositing a layer of graphene to a substrate so that it can retain its two-dimensional form, considering it's only one to just a few atoms thick. So what does this mean for new media? Well, it can hold a lot of grand implications for mobile and wearable technology, which is a huge focus on this field. A big part of new media is focusing on implementing technology within everyday life and how it affects us. And a big way that it can affect these mobile and wearable technologies is it can really help with battery life and strength due to its conductibility and how light it is. And it's also um, extremely flexible, which, as one could imagine, is pretty helpful when trying to implement something wearable. So as I mentioned, it's extremely flexible. It can stretch up to about 20%, which is the same as rubber. And another reason why this is so impressive is because it can still retain its high electrical conductivity, which nothing else can really do this while being as flexible. And batteries, fairly recently, just a couple years ago, a team of engineers and researchers at Northwestern University developed a new lithium-ion battery using graphene in its electrode. They sandwiched graphene between layers of silicon, and they developed a battery that has a charge life that's about 10 times more longer than current lithium-ion batteries on the market. It only takes about 15 minutes to charge the battery, and the charge lasts for about a week. On top of that, it can be charged about 150 times, which is more than more than about a year of use. And even after being charged 150 times, it's still about 5 times more effective than common lithium-ion batteries on the market. So, in conclusion, as I mentioned, these implications for mobile and wearable devices are huge. I mean, imagine a phone that you can put in your pocket and would contour to your leg easily, or you can drop and you wouldn't have to worry about breaking it. It would just bounce off the ground and be fine. Or you could take and wrap around your wrist like an Apple Watch and it'd still work just the same. Um, and on top of all this, as I mentioned, technologies designed with graphene could also be made cheaper, along with being more advanced, since it's fairly cheap to make. It's usually just derived from graphite, hence the name, which isn't expensive at all, and the methods of producing it are fairly easy and fairly cheap. So yeah, here are my image references. Thanks.